My name is Cynthia Nieto, and I'll be presenting my over and back lesson that I did during quarantine. To start by giving the lesson objectives um, that I used for the lesson. Students will be able to translate mathematical scenarios into graphics, tables, and graphs, proportional thinking into algebraic equations. They will be able to understand rates, understand the relationship between distance, rate, and time, and understand arithmetic mean and weighted average. And I did review the sixth grade TEKS of summarizing numerical data with numerical summaries, including means. The TEKS, we did use seventh grade uh, objective 4 proportionality and subdivisions A, B, C, D, and E. Also used objective 5, also in proportionality, and section A, section 6, also in proportionality for C, G, and H, all related to rates, ratios, and D equals RT. These are the students that I used. It's 5 students. Student 1 is a female, grade 7 from private school. Student 2 is a male, grade 8 from private school. Student 3 and 4 are a couple in 8th grade from Eastwood Middle School. And the 5th student is a female, grade 7, and she goes to Clint Desert View Middle School. Resources and materials that I used, or they were able to use. The paper and pencil, obviously. They were able to use the calculator after the pretest. They were able to use the over and back simulator from GeoGebra during the activity. They were also following a PowerPoint that I created to supplement for the in-person teaching. And in the PowerPoint, the test and the pretest, they had visuals on them for them to, relate to the question. One of the interesting things about this period is that we're having to use virtual classroom instead of face-to-face classroom. And obviously it's something that as a teacher we have to get used to now that the actual districts are doing this. So I used 3 phones to connect all 5 students. And as you can see in this picture, two pairs were able to do the activity together. And when it came to her, I did use I had to disconnect from the call with all of them in order to just call her and do the lesson with just her without the others listening. Timeline of the lesson. It included a pre-test, which I gave them 10 minutes to complete. Then they were given the lesson objectives to make sure that they're on track. They did follow the PowerPoint lesson. They did have 15 minutes to read it on their own. And if they had any questions, I was there and present. And then they were paired for the activity. And they had 10 minutes to do the activity, but it did take up to 25 minutes. And then on task 5, they discussed the results that took over 40 minutes because they just kept talking. And task 6 was the post-test, and they got 10 minutes to do the test. That I used during the lesson included cooperative learning, They were in groups. Lesson objective, transparency, which was an issue that I had during our college class. Inquiry guided instruction, class discussion, visuals throughout the lesson, and hands-on GeoGebra. Actions during the lesson. The teacher timed the pre and post test. I asked for feedback. What would have helped you to take the test? I discussed activity objectives and timelines, discussed PowerPoint after giving enough time for them to review. We discussed the pre-test and the suggestions and adjusted the lesson based on the feedback. I filled in any assumed knowledge or anything that I saw wrong on the pre-test and during the activity. I helped student 5 by partnering up with her, that way she doesn't miss out. Continually questioned students throughout the lesson for knowledge and answered all the questions. This is an example of the student's work. The activity starts right here. This is the pre-test. This is another example. He actually took notes on what a rate was. He created his own vocabulary bank. And here, when I asked to explain this graph, he couldn't explain it, so he went to the line graph instead. This is an example of 2 pre-tests or pre-assessments. As you can see, this is what she recommended. It says there should have been an exact formula to follow, and there should be no estimations or predictions. And as you can see, they didn't use a calculator. This is the post-test. The first question was for them to explain why a swimmer swimming at an average speed would win over somebody that was swimming fast and then slowed down. And on the other one was for them to get data and graph 2 pizza rates. These are the results that I got as far as the student understanding. I did break it down into each student. Student 3 and student 4, which are the 8th graders from Eastwood, seem to have understood it the best. Maybe because they were a part of a team, because the male actually was being pushed by the female to concentrate on activities, and then she took lead in the group discussions. He answered all of the pre-test questions, even if they were wrong. And then he did ask questions during the PowerPoint, and he didn't have that many questions after I explained it to him. And they both went on to the symbolic equation activity, which the others didn't. I just wanted to make sure that student 1, 2, and 5 understood at least something or got something out of the lesson, instead of being confused and behind on one thing and then being even more confused if we continue with the next activity. So that's why I put minimal understanding, because they understood half of the lesson but not the full lesson. As far as what I understood or the results about me, my self-critique would include I would need to adapt on virtual classrooms. It was really hard to gain control of them and keep them into task. I need to not go off topic to answer a question, because I started giving them examples that sometimes did not relate to a student or the situation. For example, one girl kept saying velocity instead of speed, and I took the time to explain to her the difference between velocity and speed, and that took some time. I did stopped some people from asking questions until later on, but later on never came. So that's why I put keep your word and follow through. Keep track of time. I did not keep track of time when it came to the discussion. It took way too long. Predict mishaps. That's something that I do have to get a hold of because I sort of froze when things weren't going the way that they were supposed to, or the students weren't understanding as much as I thought that they would by 7th, 8th grade. And I need to know how to keep students on task over the phone, which was very difficult, and divide the lesson to even smaller tasks. The potential misconceptions that I think that they walked away with was the clear understanding of the difference between rate, speed, and velocity because of that tangent that I went through. Proportions and how they can be represented on the graph. That's something that only 2 of the students went through on their activity, and how formulas represent information on the graph. They know how to graph. They knew very little what to take out of the graph. For example, the intersection point of the rabbit and the turtle. Only some of them knew that, oh, that's when they meet throughout the track. And these are my references.